Welcome everyone to another Cybersecurity Tuesday, hosted by Null 404. We have CoolCat here talking about persistent methods in preparation for Null's CTF. Uh, First shout out is going to be to ArcLight 6 for providing everything to hand out a free TCM voucher worth $500 here next month. More details in the Discord. But without further ado, CoolCat, take it away.
Hey guys, I'm CoolCat. I'm going to talk about persistence methods tonight for Null 404 and the CTF that me and Barry Sploit and Don Eben all putting together. So hope you guys like it. Hope I can explain it well and get past my jumbled words. Not a great speaker, so apologize in advance. But yeah, if you guys want to dive into it, so we're gonna go right in. Cool. So, what is persistence, right? What does that mean, really? Based on MITRE, we've got the TA, 0003. It's kind of how attackers stay in your network. It's how, normal day-to-day operations, keep things going also on a normal basis. The main goals, are going to be reestablish or keep access. They want to avoid detection. Keep or elevate privileges and survive reboots and patching. I'd say that's probably the big thing for any threat actor trying to get into your environment and stay in your environment. Tonight we're going to be talking about for Windows and Linux specifically and the different aspects that go into that, and then kind of go into a demo plus a lab. I did drop the files in the meetup text, so if you want to go ahead and grab those and download the auto SC or auto runs. Cool. Cool. So first up, we've got new account creation. We've got a MITRE tag here with TLF36. We've got the generic, different ways to create accounts. Why is somebody going to even create an account in the first place, right? To be able to do their day in and day out job. So different methods to do that is, net user. We got PowerShell, PowerShell for domain. And then, the different event IDs that go along with that. For Sysmon, it's event ID 1. One thing I like to add with Sysmon event ID 1 is if it's going to record, the account being created, whether it's, PowerShell or whatever, it may also record credentials, which may be a thing being ingested into a seam or a log or wherever else, your logs go to. So that could be there. That's a potential warning that you might want to be a lookout for. And then we've got 4688s in the security log for new process creates, along with 4720 and 4104 for specifically PowerShell. Any questions on generic account creation for Windows? Moving on. For the Linux side of it, it's going to be the same MITRE technique. Just user add Bob. I like to use Bob for everything. Previous role, I would use Bob for any testing account or whatever I was going to use them for. That's for local accounts. For domain, for Linux specifically, I'm going based off of Red Hat, or CentOS if you're more familiar with that. So IDM and is going to be the kind of Active Directory for that. So you've got IDM is based off of free IPA, so all the commands are going to be IPA based. So IPA user add Bob. That's going to add them into the domain if that computer is registered with it. You can also link Active Directory to IDM and do IPA commands to ingest Active Directory users into IDM. So IPA, ID override, add Bob, from Windows Active Directory. You can also pull Kerberos tickets with the kinit command, or the specific command I've listed out here is just listing out Bob's Kerberos ticket. Different log sources you can see is for the secure, and you're going to want to kind of look for the different format for date, host name, user add, and that'll kind of be more of a dead giveaway whether or not an attacker has added a user to either your domain or your local host. Specific logs for the Kerberos tickets are going to be the KRB5, anything KRB5 really. The auth log, audit D log, and then always check etc password for added unauthorized added users. And you can do keyword searches for pre-auth, user success, and etc. for anything specific on that. I'm going to go to auto start. Auto start is that the pesky Discord app that constantly pops up when you're not wanting to when you boot up your PC, or I like to think of NVIDIA drivers because they drive me absolutely insane. Attackers are going to use them for kind of the same thing. There's going to be an auto start location where they're going to put either a malicious LNK, an EXE, or even a PowerShell script. That way, when you boot up, they have a way to call back. This may be where they drop stage one and it goes out and does something else. Once you boot up the first time, or really kind of whatever they kind of want to put in there that's going to go execute and do some form of task. Before event IDs 4104, we can see different PowerShell commandlets maybe have the path in there, and then 4657 for the registry being modified. They're going to add adding to the registry. I would say is probably still pretty relevant, still common. Really all I got on this slide. Cool. Any questions on auto start? Moving on. Auto start for Linux. Specifically for users, you got the bash RC profiles and logouts, and I think there's one other one that I totally missed on the slide. It's driving me nuts that I don't know it. And then you've got your global, so affecting all users. You have the profile, the SSD, and then the entity, where you can drop scripts or L files or whatever. The RC local is specifically for auto start locations within Linux, and so that's a great place to check. You can see a lot of this. You can see in varlog messages. When I went out and tested it, it just kind of populates normal as like normal syslog information would. For the boot, that's more of relating to what you're seeing on boot up. So if somebody had put something in the syslog, and it's running on boot, you may see it in there, such as like a rootkit, right? But that might be farther down. So whether or not you see it, I'd have to do more testing. Different, streams, to kind of hunt for, Vim, Nano, Echo Sed, different script types. AU search is a good tool. I haven't used it extensively, but it is, it's kind of a high level Linux forensics tool, if you will, that, you may be able to query things like the different, like who did what, who ran this file, who opened this file, who added this, script to, this path directory. The equivalent for File Explorer, hidden files is going to be your Linux command of ls-lah, and you're going to be able, or grepping for, recursively grepping for anything that's starting with dot. That's still pretty relevant, I feel like, for hiding things within Linux. And then come to scheduled tasks for MITRE T1053. So we've got different commands that we have listed here for creating, deleting, and hunting. LH. Scheduled tasks, on the most, I feel like, in the day in and day out, your normal engineer is gonna use it just to make his life a little easier, like automate backups or updates, for example. Threat actors, going to use it to trigger malware at specific times. This may be, whether it's calling back for continuous persistence or executing something further. You can search for this in see the specific scheduled tasks in Windows Tasks and System 32 tasks. Different tools that can be used to create it is at and scheduled task.exe. You have the commands listed there if you want to take this later. And then the event IDs for creating, updating, and deleting, and then disabling and enabling. Cron jobs are the equivalent if in Linux, if you didn't know. Cron job -e is going to kind of allow you to see your profile, and then a big one is if you want to go out and query somebody else's, and if you're root and you want to be like, hey, what's Bob up to? What kind of cron jobs are he's going to, or I got to go copy Bob's cron job. Do a cron job-u and then the username, and that'll allow you to access that cron job locally on the machine. The different format here, is based on minute, hour, month, day of the week, and then your command that you're going to be executing. In this case, we have evil.sh, so that's always a fun one to find. Then different cron job locations. So you've got your generic cron, your cron.ds or cron.d for, why am I losing this? That's more of your global one. And then cron hourly, monthly, and daily. Then we have Varspool, cron tab, and cron and messages for other locations to go hunt for and look for different strings related to persistence mechanisms between dropped and cron tab. Comes to services. Services are really, for a way, for somebody to, build out a legitimate service that does some form of background functionality like logging or scanning, for example. Attackers are going to install, fake services and use it to maintain persistence, automatically launch new persistence, going to be use it to, run. Maybe, this is stage 2, right? It goes out and download something from somewhere, 2 weeks down the road after initial access. A lot of times, you're going to be seeing it in registry. You're going to can see it within the scheduled task directory itself. System 32, yeah, there you go, evil.exe right there, boom, on the screen. You've got the event IDs 4697 within security, see if it was installed, the 7045 for if the service was also installed, something security record, excuse me. And then a little note for audit running and disabling services. Disabled services can be enabled and ran with malicious binaries to allow execution. Any questions? Moving on. Services in Linux. So I kind of went a little overboard on services with Linux. So you've got different commands, related to starting it up, stopping it, restarting it, and creating. So the whole left side is going to be services for generic services, and the right side I've got containers. I did add, a generic config file here, just to see as an example of how one might go about doing that. And then where you would put that. So you put that, created service within the systemd system directory. And then containers are a little similar but different, where you create the actual podman or docker contain or configuration file that's going to keep that service and run that evil.sh, and then execute that as a service underneath systemd system. So also have the config file for that there. And then if you want it, you can enable those to also start at boot. So hence why they're called persistence, and then different locations to maybe go look for it. I always recommend checking each systemd system to see what services are there, and then the lib systemd system I feel like is a not as common, but it's still a good place to go and double check what you're looking for. Brings us to WMI event consumer. So WMI event consumers are, kind of a way of doing something. So if something happens, do this, right? WMI as a whole is, massive. You can think of it as a massive database you can interact with. So if the system memory is full, go ahead and email the admin like, hey, it's full. What do I do? And then the admin's going to go and check it out, right? Normal use case. Attackers, are going to kind of abuse the binding of it to be able to run scripts in response to specific triggers, like, for example, Mandiant and FireEye in 2015 were able to kind of see this coming out from Russian APT, such as Cozy Bear, using it in different ways. So you have the event filter, which is the trigger of if the system memory is full, then we're going to do the event consumer of run in or execute X, Y, and Z, which is email the admin. And then the binding is tying them together, and that's saved inside of the WMI repo under the moff.conf.exe. And Barry Split actually had a good question if you can query this or not. I don't know the answer. I didn't really have time to go check it out, so if somebody knows, feel free to let me know. So you can create a WMI consumer or filter in a bunch of different ways. So I just have the URL list out here, and then different ways to kind of hunt for this is for using PowerShell is probably a good way to do it. Oh man, let me see. You see, I'm losing my train of thought, guys. Oh, yep, here we go. So things you kind of want to look out for are EXEs, VBS scripts, DLLs, evals, and then one thing that may, the common false positives that may look very, suspicious, like BVT filter, for example. What is that? But most of the time, that's a benign positive. I think attackers have been known to take these false positives and slightly adjust them, like SEM event log consumer. It might be something else like SCMS event log consumer. So those little key details in there, and kind of looking for that persistent access might help you define good from evil. Different event IDs for 5857 or 5857s, track loaded provided DLLs, and then 5860 for temporary event consumer creations. And then one thing I do like on here is the sysmon for event ID 20 for activity detected, and then activity detected for consumers and filters for 2021. And here's kind of that a flow chart of it that I've laid out. So you get the event filter, event consumer, and that goes into the binding and then stored in the repo. Any questions on WMI?
Where was the location? Did I miss that? Isn't there a location somewhere where all that stuff is at?
For WMI?
Like the database? Like there's a WMI database? Right? Am I missing?
So it was kind of just an example of it's like a database, right? I kind of added in there that Bear Split had asked if how would we query this, right? And that was the one answer I didn't have, which is actually a really good question. Other than using PowerShell specifically for the different namespace filters and consumers and bindings. I want to say there's an actual tool, but it's not on the top of my head right now.
All good, I think so.
Cool. And back to our little filter flow chart. Cool. And then go into DL search load or order search load order hijack. Search loader the search load order generic use case for this would be when an application calls a DLL, right? And that's there's 3 different DLLs listed in system 32, labeled 1, 2, and 3, and it's looking for 2. It's going to go down to 2 and pull it, right? An attacker might take that and create a malicious DLL, throw it in the same directory, label it the same, and kind of put it a slot above where 2 should be and make it the same. It's going to go and pull that process. You can go down and pull that malicious or DLL instead of the proper one. If that kind of makes sense for you guys. So the attacker makes an illegitimate DLL, right? But the same name as the legitimate DLL. And then its malicious DLL is pulled from legitimate DLL in the load order. Like explore calling function X loaded from Windows DLL, check before Windows System 32, and then the name of the DLL. Common exploitable DLLs would be Empire plugin X, Red Leaves, PowerSploit. Bunch of there was I think a whole list when I looked this up that were associated to it, but that was a few weeks ago. So sorry if I don't have that off the top of my head. Then we've got DLL phantom hijacking. So loading a DLL on an application attempts to load, but either it doesn't exist or it can't be replaced. So like if you had a DLL that is no longer associated with Windows, but it's still, the Windows still goes out and looks for it. And then an attacker goes and places what is being looked for, even though it doesn't exist. It'll still go ahead and go and pull that. And then different detections we have. We can use auto runs SC to see, not just DLL or different load order hijackings, but also the WMI, User creation, schedule tasks, and a bunch of other stuff. Look for unsigned DLLs in unusual places, right? So program data.dll, that probably wouldn't be a good spot for that. Do timeline analysis. If you're unfamiliar with MACB time stamps, so modified access created and born is kind of how you forensically, can identify, when something was actually created, and you kind of want to focus mainly on the modified timestamp. Because when you focus on the modified timestamp, you can see whether or not the last time that was touched. And then you can also, do memory analysis to be able to pull and see different DLLs that may have been added and, ran within memory. Come to the autoruns tool. So the autoruns tool is a sysinternal tool. Creates hashes of anything on disk. Does check for digital signatures, and you can output to either an autoruns. Don't have I think it's an NH something format for actually like exporting and then re-importing into autoruns, or pull it as a CSV file. Accept the end user license agreement, and you should be good to go. And then, like I said before, you can see multiple different persistence mechanisms. Right, schedule tasks I think is like a big one that comes to my mind for some reason. And then white lines indicate, that it's good, it's signed, and then red lines doesn't have a publisher, and then red lines it doesn't know what it really is, or it's not what it says it is for yellow lines. I thought I'd throw this in here. It's more, I know cloud persistence is can be pretty in depth, so I just picked just for account persistence, right? So what you call log or hacking, I call logging in. Got that from a Sans author. So once an attacker gets in, they may look, for example, AWS. They're going to go look for different keys, for Bob, and if they find that Bob has only has one key in a specific tendency, or wherever they want to essentially create, if they have the ability to, they're going to want to create a second key, no more than 2 keys, right? Because if you create anything more than 2 keys, it's going to throw an error, and it's going to be alerted undetected. So it's kind of how they stay quiet. But if they do create more than 3 keys, it's good for EDR alerting and to keep an eye on within like CloudTrail logs, for example. And then we've got the rootkit bonus. So we've got the different levels of rootkit, right? So for RAIN 0 is kernel, and RAIN 3 is the application. Fun fact, the 2024 CrowdStrike break was due to a RAIN 0 failure inside of an application. So it's kind of stays within persistence, right? But it's also going to be one of those things that's got to run in really RAIN 0 to really have what you want. So userland, right? You've got variousploit.exe used along with kernel 32.dll and the nt-query directory file. So userland is really where how you get into the RAIN 0, or excuse me, userland is how you get into RAIN 0, and then kernel land is the gateway of how everything interacts with exes, and how it calls calls everything. So you've got hooking or redirecting the import address table for different running processes, directly patching, loading code into memory, or kind of really whatever you want to do. The SSD table, you can use that for to look for anomalous things. And then I've got the volatility 2 commands here. I don't have the volatility 3 command specifically for this, but you do want to kind of ignore legitimate pointers such as the N2, I can't even say that, for the system and the graphics. Kind of ignore those pointers. I've got a cool little template here. So you have the user hooks for whatever exe is being run. That kind of goes into what is now the IDT table, what used to be the IA32 table. That goes into the system dispatcher, which goes into the SSDT table, which is actually where your evil exe maybe or rootkit may be persisted in, which essentially will control playman in the middle of where anything that goes in or goes out from the input output manager and from disk and drivers can be manipulated, stopped, controlled, and so forth. And then I think that was pretty much it. I know I kind of blew through that pretty quick, but if you guys have any other questions that I can elaborate on, please feel free.
Well, that was a fun brain dump of information that I'm going to have to go back and watch several times over to gather everything that was in there, but that was super informative.
Yeah, drop the slides, dude.
Yeah, for real. Let me get that slide deck, Home Slice.
Yep. Sorry, I don't have a great pace for myself, so I kind of just rambled through it. But
No, that's good. No worries.
anything specific you guys want to see before we go into the demo?
Is there anything that would help for the demo? I'd like to see that specific slide.
Do you have the answer?
Yeah. So I think the best slide here would be just your auto runs SC and go through the initial basic forms of persistence that I have listed up. I'll drop the slide actually, so if you guys want to take a peek, because everything that I did within the demo is going to be in the slides.
Awesome, thank you.
Now, just asking for a friend, is any of this information be super valuable for me during the CTF?
I would say so, yes. I think everything that me and Barry Sport are going to talk about here, and then I think the next one is lateral movement. Everything that we're doing within the slides is going to be have some form of a direct relation. You may have to expand on that, or even shrink on that, just plus or minus a little bit, but I'd say it's all relevant.
That's the way I like it. Give me all the information I need and then let me figure it out.
I think the friend that Kevin was asking for is me. Thanks, Kevin.
Nice. Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and start up the demo. Cool. So I do have these files downloaded or dropped in the chat. Meetup.text if anybody wants a quick second to pull them or download auto runs or anything. Just let me know and we can get started. I'm going to use the CTF or the CSV though. I'm just gonna go ahead and find one thing. Oh, I don't have it on here. I know. Maybe I'll be able to use the ARN. That's what it was, ARN. Where is my auto runs? Interesting. This thing is inherently slow.
That's what people say about me. It's all right.
I have a feeling that this reverted a little bit, so. Emma, you can do it. Cool. So let's do this. So I've got the auto run CSV open, and essentially, just want to go through the slide deck, and maybe we can find something. Basically, what you want to find is the name of the user that was created, and the name of the exe. Are the two big ones that I'm kind of looking for. And you guys can just shoot me a message if you find those. But I will give this is what I'm kind of looking for. How to, or at least the user. So I'm just going to do a global search for maybe PowerShell in the CSV. And we get nothing. So let's see, how do I want to label this out? Check maybe like a full path for home directories. Maybe do net. Are you guys seeing the right screen? Am I being crazy?
I'm just seeing the screen that says RDP clip at the top, the first line.
Ah, dang. Okay, I've been totally messed up here. My bad. Cool. Okay. So let me rerun this net command. Don't get too a lot. I feel like this is missing information. Anybody else feel like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. What application are you using? Is this like timeline?
I'm using Timeline Explorer for the CSV.
Okay. Thanks.
think I might try actually auto runs because I think that shows up things a little better. So always hiccups. Cool. So here's auto runs. And let's see. So we got some different yellows. We have some different reds in here. WMI. But yep, that's pretty much it. Once you open up auto, if you open up auto runs or even CSV, you should be able to at least see the executable name and some different paths that I placed it into.
Out of curiosity, is it the OneDrive setup.exe?
It is not.
Okay. I'm like, why is command.exe like quietly deleting stuff from it? That area.
I don't know if anybody else has used it, but for auto runs, but you can just click on the different tabs and kind of narrow down in on scheduled tasks, services, drivers, etc. I am using the newer version of it, but it should be the same. So we log ons.
So out of curiosity, so I'm looking at the scheduled task. Why would a yellow highlight be across something in one of those rows? Let's
The
say.
yellow highlight was
Yours is a little
related
different.
to.
Yeah.
It's really example. All right, let me go back. Where'd it go? It's in here somewhere. There it is. So it indicates that the ASCP exists, but the corresponding exe is not found or unknown.
That sounds sus.
Very well could be.
Start exe, huh? From Dalton. Tisk. I don't know. Usually that is, right? If there's like a service running in memory and there's not a matching thing in disk, usually that's some kind of malware action kind of a situation.
Yeah, right. I mean, what are you seeing that's a scheduled task?
It's the what is that? Is that vuse updater?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that. Oh, you were just there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What? Wow.
Lol.
Yeah.
No, good catch. Yeah. So, auto runs, can make things, pretty simple, simple findings for some things and other things. Like this account, seems to be, I swear I saw it in here, but I'm having a hard time finding it, coming back to this. So, but yeah, if you guys want to work through that and, tell me all the different, persistence locations that you found or didn't find, feel free to let me know, but that's pretty much the end of what I have for you guys. So, thanks for hearing me babble and, hope you guys got something out of it.
Cool. Thanks, CoolCat.
Yeah, super
Right
cool,
on.
man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, CoolCat.
Nice.
So looking at service